Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Sid Mickle Publications. Very happy you're here with us again today. Happy Tuesday. We've got a very busy video to talk about today. We've got some subjects that I think are truly important, and I've been excited for the last couple of days to get to this. The title of the video is 4 Things an Author Must Do. I actually have my notes here because these things are so important. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything or minimize anything. And the first thing, you have to write well, but you have to work on this project until it is in your mind perfect. And in your mind, you can't make it any better. That is a really tall challenge, but that's the first thing that you have to remember as a new author. Remember, you're the publisher. You don't have a deadline. And if you do, forget it. Push it back. Write your best book. The second thing is, if you think about the most important part of your book, it's probably the first 10 pages. And I would tell you, I think universally from people on YouTube and advisors and counselors and people who give suggestions and offer help on writing would probably agree on that one thing. Your first 10 pages must engage that reader, and you must engage them to a point where they don't want to stop reading, that they don't read that first 2, 3, 4 pages and say, this book is boring, I'm moving on. You have to grab them and you have to pull them into your story with a great plot, with great characters, and with a great story beginning. I watch a lot of videos from people offering authors help, and I saw an example of this week on a video, so I don't claim credit for this. The presenter was saying he had read a book where the scene opened, the very first part of the book, the main character was in a cab coming from an airport with the taxi driver, and they had a long exchange of dialogue, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's a good setup. But the thing that was puzzling and the thing that the presenter mentioned was the cab driver never appeared again, never came back up in the story, just disappeared. So it left a puzzling point of why, or what was the purpose, what was the meaning. So you want to avoid any kind of situations like that are not really tightly wound together. It seemed like a waste of the character's time, and it didn't really seem to set up the story and involve a secondary character. Just an example of how you want to be very careful with how you begin that book to draw people in. The next thing I want to talk about is something that really I've had a change of mind and a change of heart about, and it's really come to me this weekend. And it came when I was working on the short earlier. I think that was Saturday morning, and it went up later that day. You have to be 100% confident about your books. You're the author. If you're not confident, why should anybody else be confident? And I'm telling you, it helped me to realize that there are times that I'm internally confident. I have that inner faith and inner spirit that my writing is good. But I'm telling you, that's not enough. And it wasn't enough for me. So my new point of view is my 4 books here and the 3 on that table, on that shelf over there, are great books. They are worth your money and they are worth your time. And the reason I say that is because they are well written, they are professionally edited, and they have had the amount of time necessary to make them legitimate books. And look, I'm not criticizing anyone else's books. I don't criticize any other genre. I have written a memoir, a business book, and basically crime fiction. That's what I do. That's what I like. I don't do puzzle books, I don't do kids books, I don't do romance, I don't do any of that. And it's not a knock on those things. I just don't have an interest in it. If you're going to do a high content book, you've got to write it to the degree that you can sit down in front of someone and with full confidence tell them it's an excellent book and a great value for them. And until you reach that point, you're not ready. You're not ready to publish. So keep that in the back of your mind. And every time you talk about your book, exude that confidence. Give that person you're speaking with an absolute portrayal of 100% confidence in your work. That'll go a long way to helping you and also to convincing them that you know what you're talking about. The last thing here is promote and market your book. It's something that a lot of independent authors don't like to talk about. They don't want to do it. They don't want to be marketers. We had a question last week from someone who said, I want to be a writer, not a marketer. Well, if you want to sell books and you want to have a wide range of success with your brand, my brand would be Sid Nicol Publications, and my books under that larger umbrella, you have to be willing to make yourself available and you have to promote your work. That's just a fact. That's just the way it is. There's no getting around it. Another thing that I want to get to, those are the 4 things that this video really are about. This is what we want to do today, and we're going to just touch on those subjects briefly in other ways. But if you think about last week, we talked about some things you might want to have the video cover. And we talked about some other subjects like when you publish that first book, is it going to be a standalone or will you attempt to make it a series? Well, as a question came in earlier this week, it was like, well, you have to make that decision. I think the question was, are you dumb? You have to make that decision before you publish. Yeah, I think you're right. I can't assume things like that. Probably if you're going to write a series, you have to make that decision as you finish that first book and lead into the second book. But it can be pretty loose. You can have a character jump back into a story at a lot of different times. But the person asking the question or making the point was correct. When you're looking to do a series, you've got to be proactive and basically set that series up. And I think it really will alter your close in book 1, 2, 3, whatever, and lead and draw you into the next book. Now, I knew I was going to do that with the Sam Bennett series. So in Kill 'Em All, so Who Killed Glenna, right here, Who Killed Glenna, I tried to write it that there would be a follow-up. It left that follow-up open. In Kill 'Em All, book 2 of the series, it's definite. It literally says there will be more action by this main character and the sub-characters against the primary villain. So as you see, I'm learning. I'm trying to get better at doing those things as well. When we talk about writing, don't ever think you know what you're doing. You know some of what you're doing. I'm amazed at how many things I learn every time I write a book, every time I sit down and I try to put a series together. And one right now, you heard me talk about it, is I am writing, and I'll just show you the picture here. Maybe you can see that. My next book is called Dying for Dixie. Hopefully that came through on the camera. It's a 2-part Confederate, from a Confederate soldier's viewpoint, a 2-part Civil War book. And I'm busy with that one, and I am, as I said last week, getting back on track with the follow-up, the 3rd book in the Sam Bennett series, which is called Kill Haraway. I just needed some time away from that book to kind of let myself settle down. Now, once again, I'm writing 2 books at one time. I'm a little bit more favored toward the Civil War stories because that's where I started immediately. But when you're writing and you're getting ready to start that next book, remember all the lessons we learned in the 7 modules, all the things we talked about, all those efficient things, those lists, those thoughts that were going to make that book well written and well presented. Well, we're there, okay? And you're promoting that book. You're out there. You're making yourself available. And now you've decided you're going to write another book. Let's say it's not a sequel. Let's say you didn't really plan on that. It was a standalone book, and you're ready to go with another book. Well, the main questions you have to resolve in your own mind is, what is the genre? What is really the story about? Can you develop a plot that makes really good sense and will turn into a good book? And what about your characters? Can you create strong characters that are going to make that book really pop and really move forward? So you have to do that. Remember, You can watch helpful videos. You can watch this channel. You can watch any of the 100 or so other channels that are out there. And they will not help you write the book. They will help you write your book better. And I think that's the key. Remember, you're the talent, you're the skill, you're the person putting those words into a format, into a directed story that reaches people, that appeals to them, that makes them happy or makes them sad. But more than anything, it makes them want to continue reading your book. So when you sit down, don't just jump into the first thing that comes along in your mind. Think this through. Do some outline. Try to just do some loose outlining of how many chapters it might be. How many primary characters will there be? Will it be one and all supporting characters after that? What's the setting? What's the timeline? How much research are you going to have to do to make that book really work? And research is a key. I've been writing fictional books along with one basic memoir collection of stories, which I'll get back to shortly. I was chastised this week, and I want to clear that. When I made the decision to move to the two-part Civil War story and write it from a Confederate soldier perspective, I had to really stop saying to myself, well, I've read a lot about the Civil War. I know a lot about the Civil War. I don't know enough about the Civil War to write a book about it. So I've read 4 really good Civil War stories just within the past couple months, really trying to get a feel for those writers' perspectives and handling of situation and the mindset really of the stories, and not copy them, not follow them, but take facts and take a perspective from each one of those authors and try to get that perspective in my own head and use that overall kind of perspective again to write my book and to put my characters into time frames that look, that they are historic events. Unless you just want to create a fictional group, a unit, a fictional set of officers, a fictional set of battles, which is fine. You have to do research and you have to have your timelines right, because you don't want to be foolish. You don't want to write things that just don't come together. And in the early part of the Civil War story, I really struggled a little bit with who is who. There's a lot of generals, and there are a lot of generals on either side. So my surface level knowledge had to become really deep knowledge. I had to get down and understand things. And I had to get my timelines really fixed in my mind and write the stories of different events and the sequences of those events to fit the bigger historic moments of the Civil War. And I think if you do that, your book, it has legitimacy. It stands on its own as being, a story within a true historic time frame. So that's the reason for doing that. One of the other things I wanted to talk about this week was, if you remember last week in our question and answer session, one of the questions was, what was your first book about? I think that was the general question. I got a note this week that said, you didn't answer the question. So let me answer that question right now. In a backwards glance, my first book, I did take forever to write it. I was trying to write another book over here called Principles, as I said last week. But when I did get to it, I used what I had explained last week was my flashbulb memory to write about my own life, growing up in a small southern town, the figures, the adults, the children, the times we lived in that book. And what really came to me as I wrote that was a refreshed and real clear sense of those events. The details of so many stories came back just like they always have in my mind when I think of certain events, certain people. So that's what this is about. And the other thing that was in the story, I was searching in that story. I was searching for who am I and what am I doing? What is my entire life about? I had missed some things. I had not had a real understanding of who I am and what am I doing. I always felt like I was missing something and there was more. What it really was, as I learned doing the book, was a lack of self-esteem and a lack of confidence and worrying about things that just didn't matter. So this book was a huge help to me personally, and it's by far my most successful book, and that's why I probably will always love that book. But I'm sorry I didn't answer that question real well. It was a faux pas on my part, and I got called for it, so I want to make that right. You know, as we get into this week, you see there's just tons of subjects, and there's a lot of serious subjects that we've got to come back to in another video. If you look at our list, and if you look at our 4 things here, write your best work, the first 10 pages, be 100% confident, and promote and market your book. We might just create a video down the road. Maybe over the course of the next 4 weeks, we take each of those 4 items and we try to drill down into them, and we really get some deep understanding in the how to do those things. So for right now, again, I'm always amazed at how many comments I get. I'm absolutely blown away with how popular it has been to read question and answer, or read questions and answer them, the Q&A session. So let's move to that. I always get a couple of notes that say, you're going to do that again this week, aren't you? That comes from friends and families, but we're going to do that right now. So let's go to question 1. And question 1 is from JW. Again, just first and last initials. And just so you know, folks, I get a lot of these from email. I get texts. I have multiple different areas where I communicate with people. I'm trying to get people to communicate more on the actual YouTube video. Comments are growing, they're building, but they're not as strong as other areas. So we'll try to continue to work on that. Back to question 1. How can you make money on these boring videos? Why do you wear that dumb hat? Boy, people just don't like my SMP hat for some reason. This is the second time I've been busted for that. How can you make money on these boring videos? I don't make any money on these videos. Maybe I will one day, but right now, there is no money. Well, there's money. It's money I'm spending to do things. Hey, if they're boring to you, I understand you don't want to watch it. I have people tell me that they're not boring, that they're fun and they're informative. So all you can do is your best. Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm having a great time doing it. So, whatever. This is from AH. What made you decide to start writing? Great question. I've always been a storyteller. Usually people tell me I talk too much, which is another way to say you're a storyteller. I try to create these stories. I try to make them funny. I try to make them an interesting part of a conversation. And they come from these vivid memories that I have. They're there. And I think when I tell stories, they have an awful lot of details to them. A lot of my friends are like, I would never have thought of that again until you just mentioned it. I think the thing that will answer this most directly, though, is I feel, and I've always felt, that I had something to say. So that's basically why I write. The next question is from K.A. K.A. This may be my favorite question of the week. My 13-year-old can edit videos. Are you lazy or dumb? Well, I probably lean more toward the dumb side because I just don't think I'm lazy at all. I'm a very active person. I'm active, I think, mentally and physically most of the time. Hey, I need maybe a 13-year-old, technologically talented person to come in and edit my videos with me. Maybe that's what I need. But I'm sorry, K.A. I'm really learning. Just so you know, I'm trying to understand the world of CapCut. I'm watching a lot of videos that really smart people and maybe not lazy people like me are working on. And I'm going to get better. So I'm going to get better at editing the videos. This one is from ML. I like this question too. You seem to have fun on your videos. Do you? Is your channel successful? Let me answer all of that. I do. I enjoy this very much. I think I mentioned last week about no audience for the video. Someone had asked, do you have someone watching? No, I don't. But I enjoy it. I like trying to portray good advice, trying to make sense of things that didn't make sense to me when I was writing my book. The channel is about making sense of some of these challenging things that go on in the world of writing. Do you have fun on your videos? Well, yeah, I mean, this is part of my fun. Some of the questions they crack me up. Is your channel successful? And I'm really glad you asked that question, because I want to say again, a really super thank you to everyone who subscribed. Not very long ago, I had the question come in about my 80 subscribers. Hey folks, we're at 153 as of this morning. Now, that is not going to challenge Mr. Beast. That is not going to challenge Script Garage or Bush Radical or Country View Acres, any of those channels that I watch and other people watch. But it's fun and it's growing, and I consider it to be a great success for me. I mean, I'm just sitting here trying to make a point and trying to help people. I really enjoy it. I love it, and I do consider this channel to be really successful. So there's the answer. The next one is from TY. I should have taken this out, but let me reinforce it. You didn't answer the question, what is your first book about? Okay, I think I did today. My first book is a collection of stories from my childhood and growing up, and the people I grew up with, and what the world was like, my career, my struggles, my losses and gains. And in the end, that book helped me figure out that I worried about a lot of stuff that nobody else worried about. I questioned things about myself that nobody else questioned. And writing that book really helped me be a better person. That's the short answer to it. This one is from RC. All right, I really like this question also. Probably why I picked these out. Do you really follow your own recommendations? You push for a constant edit and rewrite. You push for constant editing and rewriting. Sorry. Yes, I do follow my own advice. Now, before anyone grabs a pen in hand, when I talk about editing and I talk about rewriting and I talk about making it perfect, you're going to probably remember that we had a little bit of a disaster in Kill 'Em All. After it was published, there was an error on the first page of the text. Well, that wasn't from the editing. That was from the loading. That was from the actual mishandling of loading the manuscript. Somehow, in getting it into KDP, I managed to shift a page around or cut a page off. I can't remember. So yes, here's my point. Had I taken the proof from that KDP upload and gone over it really intently, I would have not hit publish to the general public. I would have found that. So yes, I do believe in them, all the recommendations. I try to follow them, but obviously I'm guilty, as a lot of people can be, of just overlooking something. So yes, great question. And our last question for today. This is from WP. You say you have no writer's block. You say you can always write. How? Okay, let me try to understand this question. I don't have writer's block. I don't think I've ever experienced it. When I sit down to write, I'm in the writing mindset. In other words, I don't have a schedule. I don't say every morning at 8 o'clock I have to sit down and write. I sit down and write, because I'm fairly disciplined, I sit down and write every couple of days, sometimes 3 or 4 or 5, 6 days in a row. But if I don't do that, when I sit down to write, I'm ready to write. And I've never sat down and looked at the page and just could not write. I'm very fortunate with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that isn't a huge advantage and a great thing to have. I'm tickled that that's been the way it is. The other thing that maybe this question was getting to is stories. Last week I had mentioned that I have a set of 8 short stories that I want to write, and I just haven't had the time to sit down and outline them and lay them out and even title the stories. But I really like that idea. I want to do that. And honestly, there's just this long line of things in my head that I want to write about at some point. Obviously, I've got 2 Civil War books that I'm working on, one of them right now. I have the final book in the Sam Bennett series, the 3rd book. I want to write those short stories. There are other stories. I might want to go back and write a book called Another Backwards Glance. It's bouncing around in my head. There's some things there that I think I left a little bit incomplete, and maybe I just want to update it. And these things are constantly swirling in my head. And by the way, thanks to everyone for the questions. I did wear a blue shirt today. I am wearing the goofy hat, so I'll just have to admit to that and move on from it. But look, thank you for the questions. And what I'm trying to say in this close about writing and having the ability to write, I'm very fortunate. I don't have the writer's block. I'm very, very fortunate that I always have, I think, stories that I can start, I can walk away from and come back and improve on them. And the other thing that I will tell you, just to close today and to kind of let us move on, I have really seized upon this point here that I said in the opening. You must be 100% confident about your book, about your work. I have danced around that subject a little bit with people. I have not shown that confidence. I don't know why. It's not that the confidence isn't there. I think my tendency and my nature is not to be arrogant or not to be pushy or not to be like holier than thou. I don't see writing as like this really over the top, great, amazing achievement. But I do think it's a very big achievement. It's a big achievement for me personally, and I think it can be a real positive and reinforcing thing. Maybe you'll learn something like I did from my first book when you write your book. Maybe you're learning something from the 10th book you've written. I think all those things can be true. But there's one thing that happened this weekend when I was going through that short and I was reshooting it and I was down by a small pond and I just finished working on the brush cutting down there. It came to my mind that if I'm not going to be 100% confident in my books, why should you? Why should anyone? And that forced me to sit down and evaluate all books. Now, of my 7 books, these are the 4 best because the other books are more niche. They fit in a smaller area. I will tell you that I love these books. I think they're great, and I'm really happy that I wrote them. And I will tell you this, I think they're a great value. They're well written, they're well edited, and I think the stories are very solid. And I would recommend to everyone watching this and everyone you can tell, go buy one of those books and read it. I think you'll enjoy it. Folks, we've run out of time. I always am amazed at how quickly the time goes by. My little timer on top of my counter is saying, you need to wrap this up. So we will for this week. This has been a fun video for me to shoot. I've been anxious to get here and do it. We'll go back and we'll talk about more. We'll break down these 4 things an author must do over the course of the next 4 videos. So until that time, yes, it's my blue on-off machine. Take care of yourself. Thank you for being here. Please pass along the channel's name, Sid Mickle Publications, if you like it. We would love to have more subscribers. But thank you all for being here. Take care of yourself and be safe. Bye-bye.